Playing Sloppy, a Blacking production. Read for you by me, the author. There was a long, drawn-out silence as Prince Uriel looked out at the chessboard as he yelled, "And checkmate!" as he moved his queen to where his uncle's rook had stood hours before. It was hard to keep his satisfaction from spilling over. Even in his old age, his uncle, King Septimus, was still as sharp as ever, and loathed to lose a game of chess, which meant taking his victory after a long, bloody battle all the more satisfying. Uncle Septimus looked down at the board through furrowed eyes, stroking that old white beard thoughtfully. Uriel couldn't stop himself from grinning when he asked his uncle, "Would you like some wine?" as he gestured to the silver goblets that had stood on a platter for hours now. "You see, boy," Uncle Septimus said, pointing an old withered finger at the board, "you could have made this a quick and clean conflict." "What does it matter?" Uriel shrugged as his heart beat like a hammer. "If you want, we can set the board again and play another game. But first, let's have a drink." But Uncle Septimus continued, "See here?" He tapped the board with his finger at the square that held a pawn but that stood before the rook hours before. "If you moved your knight here, you could have captured my king an hour ago." But Uriel only downed his wine in response. He poured himself some more as he spoke. "Honestly, uncle, with how obsessed you are with chess, I'm surprised you find time to run a kingdom." His uncle smiled at that. "Well, Matrick helps out a fair bit." Uriel found himself tasting those words with some relish. The court had long come to the conclusion that after the death of Uriel's father 30 years ago, succession should have been to him, but instead it went to his old age-addled, chess-obsessed uncle, who took the crown as his Lord Regent. But that was a long time ago, and it was time to seize the throne for himself. Matrick, the king's minister, had already developed the perfect story to tell the public. They would find him in his bed, passed in his sleep. Poison tends to be looked down upon, but if the witch Uriel bought the poison from told the truth, King Septimus could go to bed and never wake up. That was, of course, if he drank the damn wine. Uriel took his uncle's goblet and swirled it around, sighing, "This has been around for hours. I doubt it's any good." His uncle, however, was already setting the board again, and without looking up, he said, "Well, toss it and pour a new one. I need to show you what I mean. Play me again." Uriel grinned. "You're that upset I beat you, Uncle Septimus?" "Of course!" Septimus beamed, almost laughing, but Uriel could see something in it. "You know how I hate losing." Uriel just shrugged. "Losses are a part of any game, are they not? And sometimes one needs," Uriel proffered the goblet as though emphasizing, "a drink and a think to figure out how to adapt." The king's grin waned a bit for a moment as a cloud passed out over the moon overhead, drenching the room in shadow. "True, but, you see, sometimes losing can cost you more than a mere game of chess." Uriel played dumb. "What do you mean?" "Well, let me tell you exactly what's wrong with your strategy," Uncle said, tapping the board, this time with his pinky. "You see, you have only 2 pieces left. What is to say, if another kingdom invaded this one, could you feasibly defend it with a queen and a rook? No. You see, kingdoms and kings only have power because people obey them. And look at the board. You see who obeys your king?" Uriel shook his head, that tentative way he did as a child to keep his tutor from rapping his knuckles when he got an answer wrong. "Exactly. You have sacrificed too many lives for a gambit that ultimately might not have worked." Uriel crossed his arms. "But it did work." Septimus chuckled. "Got me there. But now, hand me the wine. I'll have a drink, and we'll see what if this happens again." Uriel was so excited to hand the wine that it sloshed up over the lip, threatening to spill over the edge as he handed it to his uncle. Soon, he would see his uncle go to sleep and never wake up, and he would rule his father's realm as was destined for him. He swore that he would make it a better ruler than that senile old uncle ever could. He would focus all his attention now on the set board as his uncle held his goblet to his lips. And for a long moment, there was nothing. After not hearing the wine pass his uncle's lips, he looked up to see the old man frozen. He looked to the right. out at the window and at the moon. "They should be done by now," Uncle Septimus said, with a tone that wasn't like his laughing uncle at all. It was cold, almost sibilant and pregnant with expectation. Without a word, his uncle poured the wine on the floor and hurled the goblet into the dark, where it clattered with echoes that made Uriel want to wince. The lights of the chandelier overhead lit a blood red, illuminating the tall wooden dresser with something at the very top. It took Uriel a few moments to realize what it was, but when he did, he screamed so loud that it echoed all around the king's bedroom. There was a thud. Uriel found himself on the floor with his lips bleeding, his uncle standing over him. But all Uriel could focus on was Matrix's severed head, his blue eyes glazed over like he was speaking passionately right before an assassin sliced his head off. "Stand up, boy. You are receiving a very important lesson here. You sacrificed too many lives for a gambit that did not work." And from the shadows, assassins flanked the old king, who cast aside his smile and now stood like a statue of obsidian in the ruddy light. They each tossed a burlap sack at Uriel's feet, and the heads came rolling out to greet him, each lord or lady that had promised him support, with their eyes fast asleep. Uriel got to his knees and vomited. "Stand up," and Uriel obeyed, heaving still. His uncle looked at him and said, "Do you know why this happened, Uriel? Do you really think that in 30 years I haven't had a plot against me before?" Uriel hated his voice when he spoke. It was that frightened, chastised child. "So what? Are you gonna kill me too?" Uncle Septimus laughed, but it wasn't his uncle's laugh. "No. Believe it or not, No, I am not going to kill you. You are my blood, after all, and you will inherit this kingdom when I am gone. And besides," he gestured to the chessboard, "we still have a game to finish." He drew closer, almost as though he was going to lead Uriel by the hand to the board. "And this time," his uncle said, "don't play sloppy."